Item on the agenda, and that's a discussion about smart meters.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President and members of the Committee of the Whole. My name is Greg Zimmerman. I'm the city's Public Works Administrator. As you know, the city's water utility has been embarked on a multi-year program to convert the 17,000 plus water meters that we have in the city to automated water meters. We've heard concerns from some residents about potential impacts of these transmitting meters on the bird population in neighborhoods, and also as the conversation went along, we're hearing some concerns about potential impacts on human health as well. So we want to cover both of those areas in this presentation. In response to these concerns, we put together this briefing, and we will talk about the automated water meter replacement program, go over some of the main features of the program and the benefits, but we'll also provide emphasis on the concerns that we've been hearing from members of the public. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Abdul Ghafoor, Renton's Water Utility Engineering Supervisor, and he'll provide the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Abdul Ghafoor. Thank you for the opportunity to present this program to you. You request that we do additional research and come back with you with more information in response to the audience questions through email and through public testimony during previous council meeting. I do it next on this thing. So I would like to start with an overview of the city's automated meter reading program. You notice I don't refer to it as a smart meter because the meter that we use is not considered a smart meter. It's a radio read meter. It has limitation in what it can do. And then we will go through the benefit of the AMR system, not only to the city, but also to our residents and water customer. And since most of homes in Renton have electric and gas meter, which already have a radio read, we will do a quick comparison of the two systems, the similarity and what's different between the two systems. And we will talk about what regulation control the emission of radio signals and which agencies actually determine the rules and guidelines for that. And finally, we also discussed the issue that Mr. Paulette and other residents from Rolling Hills have brought up to council about the perceived impact on the city installation of the radio read meters and the decrease in bird population in Rolling Hills area.
Okay.
And finally, we would provide you some general recommendation for you to evaluate. Okay. As you know, the radio read is basically, I brought a sample with me. It's your regular water meter, and then it has the register and encoder. We attach a radio unit with a battery in a 6-volt battery, and this radio it plugs register into the radio, and then there's an antenna that is underneath the meter box antenna, and this part here goes over the lid, so the only thing exposed is this part of the antenna. The remainder of the antenna is under the meter box cover, so it's not exposed to anyone except for the top portion of it. The things are like 1/8 inch above the meter lid.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Abdul, the unit that's sitting on the table, is that, am I hearing you correct in saying that that is not surface installed, it's enclosed some kind of way?
Yeah, if you look at the picture, Mr. Councilman, it's inside a meter box, and it has a steel lid, a cast iron lid, and then the only thing that shows is a little mushroom bonnet, which the antenna sits underneath it.
Okay, so I don't want to interfere with your presentation, but just a real quick question while you're on it. Does that enclosure create some emanating of the radio frequency?
I will touch on radio frequency emanation because the antenna propagates up.
Okay.
Okay. And anything below here will be in the ground. basically.
But Abdul, but perhaps you could point out that the whole brass assembly is really a traditional. It's like a traditional mechanical meter, but it's got a pulsar on top, right? So that hefty device that you set on the counter, that's really not much different than the meters people have always had.
Right.
But then that wire attaches to a little. The second item is really the new element.
It converts the meter flow into a reading.
And I think it's just, if I remember, it's just sort of pulsing. I mean, it's probably got a magnet or something that's
magnetic
just
meter.
giving a signal, which is you couldn't even read except for the fact that it's attached to that wire, and then the radio is that other part.
Yeah, the radio just transmits a reading every 4 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but basically, the whole assembly sits in a meter box, in mostly people's yard, or not people's yard, but in the right of way, you know, adjacent to the sidewalk or curb. And when we have full deployment, we will have approximately 17,400 endpoint radios on our meters. As of today, we have about 4,600. No. Okay, go back. And we also have 3 data collector, which sits at the base of the 3 city water reservoir, the West Hill Reservoir up in 84th Avenue South by Dimmitt's Junior High. We have one at the Rolling Hills tank and one at the Highlands tank on 12th and Monroe. And the units sit at the base of the reservoir, and there's a monopole antenna on top. Okay. And then we have acquired all the software, the licenses, and this big equipment here is the interface between the radio and the city utility billing system computer. So this one is at City Hall. So that receive information from the collector.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Another clarification, Abdul. So you said that there's a unit that is installed at the base of the water tower, the unit that sends the signal. And
There's this
then,
one right in the middle, the little one.
okay, and then you mentioned that there's an antenna
Yes.
on top of the tower.
Yes, a monopole, like a little, you know, antenna. Not a dish, just one, yeah.
Okay.
And then the interface is at City Hall.
Okay.
And then as we replace the meter, if the meter is over 10 years old, we actually replace the whole meter. Because after 10-year-old, the meter lose accuracy quickly. So the program includes replacing meters that are over 10 years old. So this is a schematic. You can see the meter and the radio transmitting to send a signal, and that signal get received by 1, 2, or all 3 of the gateways. So the signal is omnidirectional. It goes all direction, and 1, 2, or 3 of the collector will collect that reading. Why? Because redundancy. If one goes down, we still have 2, or at least 1 more that could collect the data. No, so the city believes in redundancy. So we don't want to lose valuable data. So, and okay. So I'm going to jump to the benefits AMR. Obviously, one of the things is cost saving. It reduced meter reading costs. Basically, reduce in travel time for the meter reader, vehicle. The city currently has 3 water meter reader full-time, and since we deployed the first 4,400, we're almost down to 2 meter reader, and the 3rd one now has been converted to a meter technician, and her job is basically find leaks and notify customer using the system.
Mm-hmm.
This, to me, is a very important benefit of the program is leak detection. What the meter does is that it does not know where the leaks occur. We program the radio to let us know if there's continuous flow through the meter over a 24-hour period. So all it tells us. So we program for most residential customer, if it go a cubic feet every hour, it would let us know, and then we would notify the customer you have continuous flow through your meter 24 hours a day. You could have a small leak. You could have some equipment that use water. In the case of Councilman Coleman, we found out that he had equipment that used water 24 hours a day, but the meter does not know it. It's not a smart meter. It just know that there's flow through the meter. And then for commercial customer, we program it differently. If you have customers that use water continuously, we find out what they use normal, and we reprogram the radio to not flag us until you notice a high usage than normal.
I will just make a quick update that somebody dropped by our house with actual numbers of how much water we're using every day, and it seems like it is more than my reverse osmosis meter, or my reverse osmosis filter might use. So I am actually trying to track down if I have another leak, and you know, I'll see. I might, maybe I live in a house that was built in 1959. Maybe the water main's leaking. So I'm still looking.
Thank you. And the graph below, last week we got a flag from this meter. You can see continuous flow of 112 gallons of water an hour for 3 days. And this account happened to be our library downtown 100 Mill Avenue. So we notified our facility manager, and they discovered the leak this morning. So you can see it benefit our customers.
When you do get some data, you can
right.
suddenly, yeah.
And if we have a leak inside your house, you might not know it until 2 months later, because we read meters every 2 months.
Yeah.
And the council know that you have processed a lot of requests for leak adjustment for large amount of money because people didn't get notified until 2 months afterwards, and then they have to take more time to fix it. Now we can notify them very quickly. Again, we don't know what the leak is. We just know it's flow through the meter. Right? Very important. And another nice benefit of this system is allow us to do our conservation program. As you know, we used to have an 18% non-revenue water, wasted water loss in the system that we know where it went. Since we implemented this program, we now are at 8.5% unaccounted water. What happened is, as we replaced meter, we found out a lot of these meters are stuck. Some of these meters did not work properly. So from that, we have more accurate reading, more accurate billing. So customers are being billed for actual water used. In the past, you know, we have meters that did not register. So when this program go through, the meter replacement itself is the one that allow us to recoup some revenues that we did not. You know, we provide service, but we did not get revenue. Now we actually get the revenues back. Now, demand forecast is basically if you have an area that you know there's water use, we can plan our CIP, capital improvement project, to provide storage or additional infrastructure for areas that have a higher use of water. So we can use that data to prioritize which project, you know, which big project go which neighborhood. The water meter efficiency improved also because now you don't have to go out and read the meter. You can read the meter an hourly if you want to. In all type of weather, obviously when you have snow, you don't have to drive read the meter. You can get the information. Another side, if the meter is sick, you can read the meter, and no worry about unfriendly dogs and traffic danger from us parking out in the street to read meter. So those are the side benefit of the system, you know. This one is it helped our utility billing staff to help customers when they have billing question. In the past, when the customer called, we don't know what the meter read at that time. We had to send a readout before we come back and answer the question. Now we can look at the computer and see what the customer's complaints all about, you know, based on the actual read. Okay, so the deployment schedule, although we have a 5-year deployment schedule, this program started back in 2008. We went to council, and because of our high water loss, we say maybe we should look into converting to automated meter reading. And we did council authorized a contract for a business case evaluation to find out the payback or recovery cost. I recall Councilman King Parker asked, why do we want to spend $80,000 in a study? And another councilman said that if we're going to spend $5 million, we want to know, get a bang for the buck. I remember that when you asked the question. So we did this business case study, and then
I can believe that.
yeah, and then in 2009, we went back to council after we complete the study and look at the payback or recovery period between 10 and 20 years, depending how fast you want to deploy the system. And then council authorized us to advertise the project and select a system. Then we selected Census FlexNet is the system that we selected after we interviewed 4 vendors. And then we have to negotiate a contract with the vendor. It's a technology acquisition, so we don't have a boilerplate contract. We work with the city attorney's office for 1 year to develop a contract that satisfies both the city and the vendor, because there's a lot of proprietary information in this contract. In 2011, we got council approval for the contract and also for a 5-year budget to purchase and install the equipment. And then from 12, we start the installation, and as of today, we have about 4,560 endpoint radios installed, and we have invested $3.1 million out of the estimated budget of 4.6, which council approved in a 5-year budget. And then we anticipate to finish the project in 2015. During this whole time, we have also notify our customers through the annual water quality report that we have an AMR program that we're evaluating since 2008. So every year we keep an update on the program. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Just a question in terms of the deployment schedule, and I'm not sure if it applies to this, so I'm asking Jay maybe want to pop in here to help me, but and I know that this came out of our budget, the city's budget. There were no state or federal funds involved in this. But I guess my question is there a public involvement plan requirement when we're doing a project such as this, that, you know, as we're going through making the case, paying the $80,000 for the case study, getting some input from the community members in anticipation that maybe some of this might become an issue down the road?
Thank you for asking the question. I looked into that, and we did not have a formal public outreach besides just putting the information in the news and the people who have done public outreach are the power and gas people, because they have to install at your house. They have to go to your house and put it on your wall. So those agencies may have contacted you before they put in the AMR system, but I don't believe they've done the broadcast on the program. They just notified you that they will come to your house and put in a radio read on your existing meter.
Yeah, since this was not new technology to the community, these electronic meters had been implemented already by PSE and by others around. We didn't, it just didn't, I guess, occur to us, and that we would need to do that. And the other thing I would just say, and you'll find out in a minute, is because the level of electromagnetic frequency that's emanated from these meters is so, it's magnitudes of order smaller than anything else around. That was the other reason why we just didn't see or perceive any concern that anybody would have. Yeah. It wasn't new technology, wasn't a big impact, certainly when relative to other things that people already have in their homes. So we didn't do a public outreach.
And the reason that I asked that is because I see here we are now, after making, you know, and we did approve it, you know, we moved it to the point to where we are implementing the program, and we have today made significant investment in it. And, you know, here we are now, you know, examining the decision that we made with community concern, and just want to point that out so that maybe we can think in the future that even, you know, if we do understand that it is not new technology, that it is something that has low-level potential harm to the community, that we still engage our community and try to get it vetted to the degree that we can get it blessed when we implement.
Well, certainly, and with all due respect to the folks who have expressed their concerns, I think as you'll see in the presentation, even if we would have done this, I just can't imagine. I mean, we're talking about something that is millions of times less impactful than a cell phone or something else. And I think if we would have brought that to you all 3 years ago when we were looking at this, I don't know that any of you would have said, yeah, that's a concern. So as you'll find out as we go through some of this information, I know people have some very real concerns. I think what you're going to see as you look through this is we don't believe that these meters are the cause of any of the concerns that they have. We just don't have any evidence to point to that. And I had people brought to us this information 2 or 3 years ago. I think based on the other information that you have and the benefits of this program, all the other reasons that we had before us, I mean, I'm certainly not going to presuppose what the council would have decided, but we certainly brought to you what we thought was the best information we had available at the time. And we were not aware of all of these concerns that are being expressed. Certainly the more recent concerns about the potential impact on birds was not something that we had looked at and were aware of, and frankly don't still believe that it is these meters are the primary reason for that.
Respectfully, Jay, I'm not here to suppose one way or the other. I don't know. That's beyond my pay grade. But what I do recognize is that we don't know that it's not the cause also. And from an environmental justice viewpoint, I would want us to think in terms, and I don't know how much we can do at this point, but I would want us to think in terms of what kind of potential impacts, when we're making these type of decisions are possible. And who knows, maybe if we did open up more public engagement, something could have surfaced from someone. You never know. We don't know one way or the other, and it's hindsight now. But I just want us to learn from this moment.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. The next slide will show you is a quick comparison of our system and PSC gas and electric system. As we mentioned earlier, the PSC system is mounted in the exterior wall of the house or business, and ours inside meter box in the right-of-way away from the house. The frequency, we both operate in the same range, about 9.3 megahertz. Now this third element is the different system is the PSC system transmits a signal of the read every 5 minutes, and its signal lasts 48 milliseconds, which is a 0.05 second every 5 minutes, or about 288 times a day. Our system transmits every 4 hours, and each transmission takes 56 milliseconds, okay, which is about 0.34 seconds per day, less than a second a day. So once the transmission gets sent, it shuts the radio off. It shuts the back, so it does not keep on transmitting. So then 6 hours later, it gives you on transmitting, and then shut the radio off again. So they save battery time. So, and the signal strength, our system is 1 watt, and PSC is 250 milliwatts.
So ours is 4 times greater.
And we'll get to that.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll get to that next slide. Yeah. Yes, on the wattage, yes. Now, this is going to be a quick one. Is how radio frequency are measured, or exposure is measured by the Federal Commission, and basically they measure energy in milliwatts, which is 1,000 watt, and they use a square area, 1 centimeter square, which is the size of your thumb, fingernail. And they average for for general population, they use a 30 minutes exposure average. That's the standard they use for radio frequency for general population. And then the limits is established using a frequency range. So there's a formula they provide the limits using a frequency range that you broadcast. Now, currently the FCC is the only agency that regulate radio frequency. And when they pass regulation, they have comments from FDA, Food and Drug Administration. They receive comments from the EPA, OSHA, Occupational Health Safety, Department of Defense. So they get reviewed before they publish their guideline on exposure limit, they actually get reviewed by other agencies, you know, so. And this is to answer the question, when you talk about exposure levels, there are 3 factors that people looked at when you look at the wattage. One of the things is the power output. So our system is 1 watt, PSC 250 milliwatts, little less. They also look at the distance from the antenna to exposure surface. So if on a water meter, I don't stand like this to read the meter. You know, we either stand out here or touch it. The PSC meter, if you want to look at it, you go closer. So the distance from the antenna is an important factor when you look at exposure radiation. The duty cycle is one of the very important things, how fast, how much time it transmit, and how long it, you know, between transmission. So using the 3, that's how you compare. PSC transmit a lot more often than we do. They have less wattage, and the distance is closer than we are. If you were to go in front of the house, read the meter.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I was going to ask for a clarification of that. So we know that these meters are on the right-of-way, you know, usually, these meters are on the right-of-way, usually in front of the house.
Yes.
But what you're saying is that if there was, you know, constant, significant, if you're close to the meter, there's a greater absorption of the radio frequency.
Right. It's a square inverse square. So as you go away, it gets much smaller.
Diminishes.
Yeah. Diminishes. Yeah.
And it isn't even a cube, or to the 3rd power. Doesn't it diminish by the 3rd power actually?
I believe it's square. I saw the formula in square, but I can check on that.
Okay. The numbers, the numbers for the meters used in Renton system, 1 over 14 million and 1 over 160 million suggest even greater power than that.
Yes. Yeah. So that's based on the FCC limit. If we're 3 feet, we are 1/14 million of the limited distance.
Yeah.
Way below the FCC limit.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, if you for the folks at home, can you put that in the layman's terms?
I have a slide, so I'll come up with it. Yeah. For this slide, as you know, we use devices daily that use radio frequency. Okay, so I will look at the chart, compare some of these frequencies. The cell phone use radio frequency, cordless phone use it, microwave oven, Wi-Fi router, natural exposure to human body, earth exposure, and our meter. But what this chart does, to make it simplified for you, we look at the exposure level at 3 feet and at 10 feet, and we compare the REN system, which is the unit 1 is a baseline. For example, the cell phone, if you were to stand, I got to written this down, to get the equivalent exposure of a cell phone used for about 2 minutes during half hour, you need to stand next to our meter 3 feet away from 4,400,000 meters to get the same exposure for 4 hours. So if I use my cell phone for 1.81 minutes in a half hour, okay, the exposure that I get from that usage is equivalent for me standing 3 feet away from 4.4 million meters transmitted in 4 hour period. So that's the level of the magnitude that we're comparing. For cordless phones, 2.8 to 31 million times 3 feet 10. So you can see the exposure drop quickly as you go away from the meter. Any question on this slide? Or no? Okay.
I think that this is an important point. So you're saying typically the way a cell phone is used, it's going to be giving you over 4 million times the exposure that you'd get from being 3 feet away from one of these water meters.
Correct.
And is that, okay, I mean, that's obviously very compelling. And is that per minute of use? Is that what? So somebody who talks on their cell phone for 60 minutes a day is getting many times that even.
Yes, this is based on half hour, and you only use 2 minutes in half hour call.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of that is just the closeness
exactly. The
of
distance,
the transmitter.
The power, and the duration.
Yeah.
The 3 elements. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is just something I found out, that if you walk through the radar beam at the grocery store, you get more exposure to radiation than you go to walking next to water meter. And we probably didn't think about when we walked through the grocery store. Now, the sensor system, that we use, they have deployed more than 12 million similar endpoints for electric, gas, and water throughout North America. So that some fact that you might want to, just for your information, there are about 14,000 water utilities in the United States and 83 million service connection. 28% right now have AMR, but they're catching up with the gas and power. In 2007, there were 5 million AMR units shipped to North America water utilities, and currently, more 40% of water meters in North America are being read by AMR technology. What they predict is that the water industry will catch up with electric and gas on the radio read meters. This is a map of the area within the city that had the radio installed as of September 2012. The three collectors that we have is the small triangle called West Hill Collector right in here. And then we have one in the Highlands up in this area, and one at Rolling Hills, where Mr. Ouellette's neighborhood is. And the square area that I have shown, a little square here in red, that's the Rolling Hills community and surrounding area. And the radio, as of September 30th, we installed almost to the edge of the community. And then from up to March 15, we have this radio in Rolling Hills amongst other areas. So, okay. Now this one's, so even all the publication that you find for or against smart meter, AMR radio, people still challenge it. So in California, give me 1 second. The Assembly of the California Legislature requested this California Council on Science to do a comprehensive independent study, science-based study that would help policymakers resolve debates over whether smart meters present a significant risk of adverse health effect. So this council is formed by over 24 experts in relevant fields, and they review over 100 articles and report and provide the legislature in California with their recommendation. So this report, you find it a lot in literature. So it's commissioned because people didn't believe the FCC guidelines were conservative enough for human impact to humans. So they asked this council to do an independent study. And the findings of the studies, this is quoted from the study, is that wireless smart meters result in much smaller level of radio frequency than cell phone and microwave oven. We showed you that earlier. Another conclusion that came from the report is that the FCC standard provides an adequate factor of safety against known thermally induced health impact on smart meter and common household electronic. To date, scientific studies have not confirmed non-thermal impact of radio frequency emission, and not enough is currently known, like you mentioned earlier, Mr. Councilman Craig Taylor, not enough is currently known about potential non-thermal effect to recommend additional standard. So they agree on that, The next one, we will hopefully present our finding on AMR and BERT. And we call other cities and water districts that have AMR radio and to see if they have anybody complain about bird population. We haven't heard anyone complain about it, they told us. So, but we could not find many studies at all that talk about bird population. Some studies talk about nesting near cell mass, big reservoir tower, cell tower, but nobody talk about bird migration or feeding habit. So, so there are no reported any adverse effect on birds on area with inflected system. So, no conclusive scientific evidence of impact on bird. And, for example, the PSC's metering has been going on for over 10 years, and we have no reported adverse effect. We operate the same radio frequency range as PSC, and we have full compliance with FCC, regulation. And many other reasons for fluctuation in bird population could be natural fluctuation from one year to the next, could be presence of predators, change in food habitat, or habitat. And so our recommendation, for your evaluation is that we will monitor federal and state agencies, come out with any new regulation or advisory against use AMR, which will be applicable to all radio frequency usage. We will notify council if there's regulation or any advisory notice issued against the use AMR, and then we would like to complete the deployment of our program. With that, I'm open to questions. Before that, I would like to also thank some of my staff that helped me put this presentation together, Lise Hornsby, Greg Zimmerman, and J.D. Wilson, with a lot of effort in researching this information for us tonight.
And is that the end of the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll make a couple of comments. First of all, I want to thank you for putting that together, and I really appreciate the charts in there. I think probably the public is going to want to digest this too, and I imagine we'll get some feedback. But in general, I think the most important chart that I wanted to see was how the levels of transmission compare to other common levels in our environment. Because I'll just say that, in general, RF radiation, I think people can continue to argue about whether the RF in our environment is completely safe for us or not. I frankly don't know. I suspect it's safe, and I have a cell phone, and my family carries cell phones. But I think the key is that that the cell phone, when I put it here, is 4 million times more energy than my smart meter out at the street, and so if there is an RF component, we're not worsening that, and I think that's probably a key point. Presuming that I think the citizens might want to talk about those numbers, but I mean they seem reasonable to me the way you collected them, at least at this point. So that'd be my comment. I'm curious what other council members might say.
Well, as you know, I walk the water line right away, right by Rolling Hills, at least 5 days a week, and I see there's 2 hawks flying around there, and there's woodpeckers pecking on the steel poles that of PSC, and that's to attract other birds. So.
Either that or a sign of woodpecker brain damage.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah,
but no, they've been doing that before we put in the meters, because I've been doing this for years. But that's the way they attract their mates, is to see how much noise they can make. And I've seen the birds. I mean, these hawks fly around there all the time. So, and we see coyotes run across the road. Yeah, my neighbors have seen bobcats, and actually one of them even saw a cougar. So, there's a lot of things going on up in that area because of all the woods.
Mr. Chair?
yes, sir.
The only thing that comes to my mind is, great presentation. I appreciate how you took in a sensitive and complex issue, and you've really made it understandable to many folks at home and that are here. But one of the things that I like to think about is that we are on the dawn of enormous amount of emerging technology. And I've been happy to get a lot of the emails from different folks and learning about things, a term I've never heard of, dirty electricity. you know, the idea that, you know, there's a compounding of radio frequency devices that maybe, you know, individually may not, you know, have any kind of significant impact, but collectively,
Right.
you know, and do we know? Do we know collectively? Do we know what the mix, you know, of all of these different frequencies collectively create? And it can be nothing, you know. But I guess the question, and I'm always wanting to ask the question, you know, to try to do some diligence, and you know, if at all an opportunity is here to involve people that again know a lot more about this than me, I want to know about that. That's information I'm interested in.
I think, Councilmember, the study will continue. It will go on. And what the thing about studies is that it has to be peer review. You can come up with a study and someone can challenge that study. So what is California study that I referred to earlier, this has gone through peer review by scientists and by other agencies open to public comment before they publish the report. So for us to conduct a study, we would know where to start. It would take years to conduct a study. And even that, the result can be challenged, and you know, because it would not meet peer review. So we have to look for studies that have gone to the peer review. What that meant in the peer review, that it has to stand in court in case someone challenges it. You know, to us, that's important that the state of California has done so. So the concern has come from previous customers.
We've talked about this a lot as staff about what could we do in terms of a study to try to determine what the impacts are. And I think as Abdul said, we can continue to try to take a look at that and see if we can come up with an estimate, but it would need to be a multi-year study, because as the information we've gotten from the Audubon Society and others there is a fluctuation in bird migration patterns. Climate has a lot to do with it. There's lots of things, so it would need to be a multi-year study. A real big issue for us is how would we control for variables? There are so many variables out there that for an individual city, we just have not done this before. A scientific study of this magnitude would be one that would be comprehensive and expensive and incredibly complicated. And as Abdul said, we certainly don't have the expertise in-house. So we'll continue to look into that and see. But I think, as he mentioned, I think what ultimately the standard that would be required would be one that we would likely have to partner with a much larger agency or agencies and have it be part of a much larger study than just certainly one for a specific neighborhood in Renton. That would not be a large enough sample. Whether even our city would be a large enough sample would be another issue that we would just we'll have to continue to look at.
If I may, you know, when I spoke with Jay earlier on the phone, I mentioned that I was on council, and Jay was here, of course, when the Telecommunications Act passed. Was that 96? I was trying to remember.
96.
1996. Yeah, and you may or may not know that at that time the federal government came in and made it crystal clear to local authorities that we had no jurisdiction over the placement of radio transmitters. They knew that the issue of RF radiation was continuing to be controversial. There were continuing to be studies about it, and they basically came in and said that cell phone companies will be allowed to locate antennas basically in neighborhoods and anywhere they wanted to. And cities across the country challenged it and ended up not being able to affect really any impacts other than just we actually worked with telecommunications companies to get some of the towers so that they were less obtrusive and to try and locate them in commercial areas and so forth. But you know, I never came out of that convinced that we knew that there was no impacts of RF radiation. But the thing is, I mean, people's homes are within 100 feet of these massive, cell antennas or whatever. Maybe not 100 feet, but a couple hundred feet. And the energy we're talking about is just millions of times greater than So I think that it's possible. I think the jury's still out on RF radiation. I was sent a video I thought was interesting by a doctor talking about, or a woman, actually a journalist talking about it, that talked about the term electrosmog. And I think we'll probably hear more about electrosmog in the future. And the other thing I wanted to say is I think, maybe to Greg Taylor's point, I was on council, so I'll have to accept some of the responsibility that we didn't do more public outreach. And I apologize that we didn't. But I want to say that we probably would have, at that time decided that the power was way below what we saw with cell phones, and not having any anecdotal information about birds. I don't know if we would have chosen any differently. But my final comment on that would be that that I don't think we should ever dismiss that some people will have concerns. I mean, there may be some people that are more sensitive, and frankly, I feel like if there's people that are just become worried about it, I hate to impose something on people that just makes them fearful. And so I think we really do need to take the concern seriously, but I guess, I'd ask if somebody from the public says, no, this isn't 1 million times less, it's actually more than cell phones, I'll be interested in hearing that. If it is 1 million times less than the impact of a cell phone. I just read a news item yesterday or the day before that said more people had access to cell phones in the world than had access to toilets. I thought that was interesting. They said 6 billion people in the world have access to cell phones now. And again, you take the transmitter and you put it right at your head. So, anyways, I'm sure we're going to hear more conversation on it, but I appreciate the information.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a couple of comments and questions. Yeah, let's make sure that we're clear on when we approved the smart meters, this wasn't done behind closed doors. It was done through normal committee process that public had opportunity to be a part of. There wasn't a specific outreach, but it wasn't, it was regularly noticed meetings and that type of thing. Abdul, you mentioned that PSE has been using these for 10 years. I just want to be specific. It was specifically in the neighborhood that has raised a concern. PSE has been doing it for 10 years?
96% of homes in Renton or more have
okay, but it's been 10 years in that neighborhood.
They started in 1994, 95. Yeah.
Okay. It seems to me a little bit that a neighborhood came to the concern about that they thought that the smart meters were affecting the birds in their neighborhood, and now we've got it to RF levels of cell phones and people and cell phone towers and all that. We seem to have creeped a bit, not necessarily bad, but the concern that was kind of brought forth to us was this specific neighborhood and their concerns about the smart metering. I would be interested, or if other council members are interested, is penning a letter from the city or from the council to a jurisdictional agency passing up these concerns that we heard from the Rolling Hills neighborhood. Somebody that would be more in the position to do a substantive study on birds and that type of stuff, even broadening to other RF things, saying that we've heard from some of our constituents in our neighborhoods that they have some concerns, and I don't know if they, the FDA or the F something, I'm sure. And just saying that we would like this other jurisdiction to take a look at it.
Would that be state agency or?
Yeah, I mean, it probably wouldn't take too much looking around to figure out who would be a proper reviewing agency, but
I think that
probably
would be
UTC.
good.
Utilities Commission.
Okay, yeah. I'd be supportive of that. I think that's a good suggestion. Yeah. Okay, so we'll make that a recommendation coming out that we asked for advice from state governing agency as well. And do we know, so are most, I thought that was another interesting point. So most of our gas and electric meters now in the city are these
Right.
meters that transmit?
In King County. Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I think, Lise, did you have something you wanted to add?
We should probably send the letter to the FCC. They are the regulating body for
Right.
the RF.
Okay. I'd support that too.
Any other comments or questions?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. With that, Committee of the Whole is adjourned. We'll reconvene in about 10 minutes for the council meeting. Thanks.
We need to work together.
CERT training is fun and exciting.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun and I learned an awful lot.
We are trained to go help in natural disasters or any kind of a disaster, mainly in our own neighborhoods.
I thought it was great. Everyone came together and worked as